There was a little bit of a news drop just before we started recording. SMU and Oklahoma. Oklahoma, of course, going to the SEC. And so they kind of have a non-conference game that's kind of getting ripped up, right? I believe Tennessee and what was the other one?
Georgia.
And Georgia. So obviously that's going to be a conference game, so they need to fill a slot. Hello, SMU. So this will be a home and home. This will be in Norman next season in 2023. And then in 2027, SMU will get the benefit of that, and Oklahoma will come to Dallas and play in Ford, which will be really cool because, of course, Dallas is only like 3 hours from Norman. So that should be a pretty cool atmosphere both ways. So I'm actually really looking forward to that.
Someone said that they might try and get it to be played at AT&T Stadium, which would be pretty cool. I don't know if SMU's got a big enough following for that, to have it there, but I think that'd be kind of cool to see if, Jerry would try and get that game to be played there. But
it's a smart scheduling situation for SMU because you're going to sell out Ford. Even if AT&T doesn't work out,
that's a good point.
You will sell out your home stadium.
Mm-hmm.
How fast that sells out probably will dictate if it moves to a bigger venue or not. But there's so many Oklahoma grads in Dallas. I mean, that's why the Red River rivalry is here, right? It's as close to Norman as it is to Austin up here in DFW. So I think it's a smart move for SMU. That the game next year, looks really exciting the way SMU's playing. Rhett Lashley's offense versus Brent Venerable's defense. I think it's a good test for Oklahoma. It's one of those G5 teams that doesn't look like an easy win, but it should be a win. And then for SMU, it's a chance to make some money, sell out your home stands, and then maybe pull an upset.
Yep, I'm very much looking forward to that one next year. And actually, that was it. So we don't have any headlines. So anyway, moving on to the other part of this is not really a headline, but a kind of a news drop we had on the website, or an article drop, I should say. If you remember the Sunday episode, we talked a little bit about Jimbo Fisher and kind of his legacy and kind of asking the question, is he the quarterback guru that we kind of expected him to be, or that A&M's paying him to be, right? We kind of had the idea of maybe you take away Jameis Winston, you maybe throw him E.J. Manuel, right? Outside of those two guys, and really just the 2-year span under Winston, because Manuel really didn't lead a national title contending team. So you really take away those 2 years from Jameis Winston, and what do you really have? Do you really have a guy who should be paid like Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, things like that? Even a Ryan Day, if you want to as well, even though Ryan Day hasn't had a national title appearance. But still. So Craven, this morning, dropped an article that basically naturally from that conversation, Craven had an article idea, dropped an article today. From zero to hero, criticism faces Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M offense following Week 2 loss to App State. And in the article, Craven breaks down the numbers, poses the question, hey, has Jimbo Fisher ever really been an explosive offensive guy? And first of all, I wanted to recommend everybody to go read it. It is a good breakdown on just his whole career, his time at A&M, and just kind of, one, what A&M expects of him, two, what he is, and three, does that need to change, right? Is because you're hearing a lot of talk of offensive coordinator, of different play caller, obviously quarterback and all that might be the quick fix that can happen immediately. But Craven, kind of when you were going into this article and kind of constructing it, what were kind of some tentpole thoughts that you had?
So first, I wanted to look up passing yards per game and just kind of see where that was at. So from 2012 to 2014, specifically in that 2013 year, that's kind of the zenith of Jimbo Fisher's offensive prowess, right? Like those teams were his best teams, won a lot of football games, won a national championship in 2013. They were throwing for 316 yards per game, 317 yards per game, in that range back then. His first year at A&M, it was 252. Second year at A&M, 235. Third year at A&M, 234. Last year, 208. So the trend is moving down, right? And so when you're getting paid, I think there was a time where A&M winning 8-9 games in the SEC was acceptable.
Yeah.
But if you're paying a guy $10 million a year, if his buyout is close to $90 million, if it's all guaranteed and you gave him an extension in 2021 that kind of just re-upped that, right?
Yep.
You're paying him to be like the coaches you talked about, and he just has not been. In the 6 years following the 2014 season, Jimbo Fisher's 49-23. That's not – that's Mississippi State.
Yeah.
That's Ole Miss.
And we kind of saw – Florida State is still trying to get back up to what he left them with.
Yeah,
right?
they were 5-7 the last year he was there.
Right, and I think a lot of people, I don't know, to me, if you ask a lot of Florida State fans, and that could be a biased source, sure enough, but I think a lot of them are willing to say, he didn't leave us much. right? It wasn't from a team coming off a national title and having a number 1 overall draft pick quarterback. Like, Bud Elliott at 247 now, he, of course, is closely tied to the Florida State recruiting scene. He's like, they had no FBS linemen. Like, that was not an FBS offensive line, let alone a Power 5 offensive line when he left. And obviously he's done better here at A&M than, the talent is here, right? Maybe he did have a bit of, I think David Ubben in his research more or less said like A&M was reaching out to him that year, like early, right? So maybe he was checked out. Sure, fair enough. But I think there is something to be said about how something cratered so quickly, right? From going from a national title caliber team to being perceived now as this builder and this genius. And I kind of agree that we talked about this, where it's gotten to the point where maybe he's not the coordinator he used to be, but he could be the builder.
Sure.
He's built something,
you
right?
hired Jimbo for 2 reasons.
Yeah.
To acquire talent and to play really good offense. And he's done one of those.
Yeah.
They've acquired talent. Texas A&M's the 5th most talented team in the country, according to the blue chip ratio by Bud Elliott. That that means that 4 and 5 stars, right? That's how many are 4 and 5. They have the 5th most talented roster in the country. But he's 25-13 in 3 full seasons at A&M. I think we gave way too much credit to that 2020 season when they went 9-1. But everything was so weird that year, it's hard to take anything from it, whether good or bad. A lot of teams that are always good had a bad year that year. Baylor went 2-7 that year, for example, right? So if we just throw out 2020, just throw that out. He's 25-13 in 3 full seasons. He's lost at least 4 games in each of those 3 seasons. This is what A&M is. They're an 8-4 program. But the expectations, because of the money and the recruiting classes, have grown beyond that. And they want to be Georgia. I think Kirby Smart at Georgia is the roadmap for what Jimbo Fisher was trying to do at A&M. Kirby Smart went 8-5 in his first season in charge at Georgia. They hadn't won less than 10 games since, right? And so that next step just hasn't been taken at A&M. It didn't get taken after the Johnny Manziel years where that kind of gave them some momentum. It's not getting done now during the Jimbo years where that was supposed to get them to the top. This is a team that was ranked 6th in the preseason polls 2 years in a row, last year and this year. They go 8-4 last year, and all we hear from College Station is wait till we get our quarterback back. They get their quarterback back. They run 38 plays against App State. They lose 17-14, 13 of 20 in the passing game, not even for 100 yards. It's a bigger problem than just who's playing quarterback. This is a defensive world that has caught up to what Jimbo Fisher tries to do, and Jimbo Fisher hasn't taken the next step. We saw this happen to Nick Saban, and he went and hired Lane Kiffin and changed the whole concept of that team. They recruit 5-star quarterbacks now, and they go score 40 points. We've seen Georgia make transitions. We've seen Oklahoma make we just have not seen it through Jimbo Fisher. I think the noise is getting louder and louder to where I'd be surprised if he doesn't bring in an OC by the time next year. By the time the start of the 2023 season, I'll be surprised if Jimbo's still calling plays.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Saban and Smart kind of adjusting, and I think that's a great point because he's being paid to be those guys, right? The only other precedent we have for a national title winning coach taking another job is Saban, right? That's like the closest peer as far as that's concerned. And so obviously Saban went to the NFL and then came back to college, but this point still stands. When Saban realized he had to hire Lane Kiffin, right? He couldn't hire the Jim McElwains anymore, right? He couldn't hire the one-back systems that they used to have. He needed to spread it out. Since then, he's maintained that, right? We can talk about, we can make fun of Bill O'Brien and all that stuff, but like he is a modern offensive coach, right? Steve Sarkisian, same way, modern offensive coach. He hasn't looked back. You look at Kirby Smart. What was the thing that lost Georgia that national title game? It was offense. He went and brought in Jeff Monken, right? And so you go and get an offensive mind. And then even defensively, I think they've adjusted. Neither Kirby Smart nor Nick Saban has called plays at Georgia or in a while, right? Kirby Smart called him at Alabama, obviously, and Saban probably, I can't even remember. I'll have to look back. He might have called him early.
Yeah, I think the first 2-ish years.
Maybe, but he delegated to Kirby Smart, right? And then you look at the guys he's hired since then, Jeremy Pruitt, Pete Golding. There's another name I'm there.
Mel Tucker.
Well, that's Kirby Smart.
Oh, yep.
So Kirby Smart, yeah, but to your point, Kirby Smart hires Mel Tucker, Dan Lanning, right? Play callers. He's like, you know what? Nick Saban realized when Johnny Manziel was beating his butt, you know what? My linebackers are too slow. Right, I can't have these guys, and so he adjusted. Similar to,
and he went and recruited the Johnny Manziels.
Right, exactly. He started. I got to win with those guys. Right.
Right,
And so they've adjusted, and we're seeing the benefits. Right now, Georgia, who knows? Maybe this year, Georgia, it really is the year that they really take the step forward and be that premier program. Even across the way, because you can say, oh, it's offensive versus defensive philosophy. Lane Kiffin didn't call plays for Ole Miss last year. It was Jeff Levy, right? You look at somebody like I'm trying to think of another example, Dabo Swinney. Yep. He was an offensive coordinator for Clemson. He hasn't called plays, right? Jeff Scott's called plays. I forgot that Tony Elliott called plays for Clemson. Like, you realize Chad Morris, that's a great point too. Chad Morris was his first offensive coordinator at Clemson. So, like, you adjust with how you see the game. If the game is passing you by, you let other people in the room, right? You know what? Yeah, you're right. I'm not seeing this right, or I'm not seeing, maybe my offense is too complicated or whatever, because Jimbo Fisher notoriously has like a 7,000-page playbook that an 18-year-old has to dissect and be able to put together. And sometimes, unless you have a Jameis Winston, you can't get it done. So it is something to keep an eye on, because you mentioned it in your article. The quick fix is the quarterback. Right, I don't know. See what different results happen when you change Max Johnson or Connor Wigman in for Haynes King, but that's not something that's going to last through an off season, especially if the season turns out the way it possibly can. And we'll get to their next game up in a bit.
Because I think Jimbo Fisher, the head coach, is safe.
Oh, 100%.
Jimbo Fisher, the play caller, is where the issue is.
I was about to say,
so we're not up here talking about like the end of the Jimbo Fisher era.
Oh, right.
He just signed the #1 recruiting class in the year last year, right? Like, there's plenty of momentum going on in College Station. He just needs to bring in somebody from outside of his tree that he trusts to come in there and call plays and kind of reshape that offense, give them the keys, and let them go to work.
Sure.
And if he refuses to do that because of like pride or ego or conservatism or whatever, I think this is what A&M football is, and that's not what you're paying $10 million for.
Nope,
so it's just kind of it's a crossroads for Texas A&M and
100%.
Jimbo Fisher as a coach. Because if, his whole career, he's gotten jobs and been successful because he is a great offensive mind. Mm-hmm. And now people are telling him that it's passed him by. That's got to be a hard pill to swallow.
Sure.
Right? But like when you're making $10 million a year, you got plenty of things to chase it down.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's just kind of – it's not going to happen this year because it's the middle of the year. And, even if he gave away play calling duties to the OC right now, I mean, it's just him.
Right.
It's
about to say.
It's just like his guy calling plays.
Right.
Same thing.
I was about to say Damian Craig
right.
is going to call plays.
It's the same thing, right? So he needs to go get a Jeff Levy. Like somebody who is like not in his tree, that's not a former assistant that he
Scott
trusts.
Frost?
Man, there are worse ideas, honestly.
Yeah.
He's a good play caller.
He is a good play caller.
Good at time management.
I was about to say he might just not be a program builder, but that is
right.
There have been worse ideas thrown around.
Scott Frost is going to go sit on a beach somewhere for a year or two and get that buyout money.
Or he's also going to get. He's also going to go to that Alabama coach rehab.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's going to go be an analyst.
He'll get car washed by Nick Saban and come out looking clean on the other side. But all these coaches got to disappear for a year or two to keep that buyout money coming in. Because if he takes another job like that, then that buyout money goes away.
Right, exactly.
And so he'll Tom Herman it, where he'll disappear for a couple years and then his name will pop up. Because Herman may be the next Nebraska coach.
Also that. Yeah. Or Texas A&M offensive coordinator Tom Herman. You want to burn the bridges?
Yeah, literally. Good Lord.
That's all I'm going to think about for the rest of the day.
Like I said, go read Craven's article. Is up right now on TexasFootball.com. Is the first thing you see when you pop up over there. So be sure to give that a read.